folks, we're back. Game number 15, Morphy's Games of Chess. We got Morphy versus Paulson. Okay, fourth round. The date was November 6, 1857. All right. So here we go. Morphy's got the white pieces. Let's get into it, right? E4. Okay. Paulson with his Sicilian. Here he goes again. C5. Morphy brings the king knight out. And just like before, Paulson follows with E6. And the D pawn is played. And there they trade the pawn. Centralized knight for Morphy. Okay. And here comes Paulson again. We've seen it, folks. And the other couple of Sicilians. Paulson likes to bring out the king bishop, hitting that knight. All right, so we had Morphy throwing the knight over here the other two games. Look at this one now. After two trials of knight to B3, Morphy now adopts a better move. Here it is, folks. Boom. Queen bishop to E3. All right. Develop the piece, right? Bring out the pieces. You don't have to move that knight. The knight's centralized. It's in a nice square for the knight right now. Bring out the piece. All right, here he goes. Look at Paulson. Piling up now. Here it is. Piling up on that knight. All right. Plus he's attacking B2, right? Okay. Morphy swings the knight to B5, blocking that queen from the B2 pawn, right? I'm looking to swing it somewhere, maybe D6 or C7 with a fork or the rook and king. All right, Black's got it covered right now. But, you know, let's see what happens. Okay, now, here's what it actually says, believe it or not. Here's the next note, right? It says right here, knight to C3 is better. See game 17. All right, so I'll tell you, it's just that they're going to war. And Morphy's, you know, by trial and error, he's forming the best offense to what Paulson's doing. You see, he's slowly getting there, one step at a time. You know, by the end of the match, he'll have this one all figured out. You see, but they're saying this is better, right? Now get a load of this. A lot of you must be saying, oh, what if he takes the B pawn, right? B pawn's undefended, folks. Look at this move. The king knight to B5, right? Now the bishop's hanging. Okay, so say like they trade over here, right? He trades, right? Look at this. Did you even see it? Here's the other threat. The queen's trapped, folks. The queen is trapped. Good night. Goodbye, however you want to look at it, right? Okay. I mean, where's he going to go, folks? The knight protects A2. The knight protects the other knight. He can't take either knight. He can't take here. He can't take there. He can't take anywhere. He can't run anywhere. He's trapped. All right, get the rook for the queen. Get the rook for the queen at least, right? Look at this. So you take here, I guess, right? And there you go. You go from there. Well, I mean, what do we have to analyze? It's over. I mean, he's going to save his bishop. I guess he doesn't want the fork, right? You go over here to protect C7. Else White's going to get the rook in the corner too, right? Insult to injury. All right, but either way, well, Black's busted. Just to make sure I know what's going on, right? To prove it, let's bring out the engine, okay? Let's bring out the engine. Come on. Let me just make sure this now, right? Where are we? All right, chess settings. Here we go. Chess Genius, highly recommended. Can't stress it enough. All right, here we go. Here's the engine. Look, I bang it, but right here, boom, wham. Rook to B1. All right, what's he? Look, he takes the knight, huh? How about that? He likes taking the knight. I figured he'd take the rook at least. Look at this. That's what I wanted to check. I remember the Shredder did this too. You just take, all right, now he runs away. He runs back, right? There you go. Oh, look, White's winning. 2.5 pawns up. Forget about it. 2.5 pawns up. I'm cracking up. My voice is cracking. It's all over. It's all over. Now, look, why not take the rook like I was saying, huh? Let's see what this is. Well, look at this. He checks first over here. He checks first, right? They're saying king E7. Oh, boy. Look at this. So you're going to grab the bishop with check, right? Or let's see. What's he saying here? All right, he chooses to take this guy first. I guess that bishop's not going anywhere, but he gets the knight out. Okay, now the rook's defending that c8 bishop. Might as well keep your knight on d6. I mean, folks, we saw the other two games, right? Oh, we got machinery going around. I'll tell you, folks, we got trains, planes, and automobiles. I know in my other videos we had trains. I got the whole world outside my window here. Unbelievable. Now they're going to cut the grass. I tell you, my timing could be better. All right, good, he's leaving. All right, I apologize for that. Hey, you know, the world goes round, right? Okay, that's what this game of chess is about, right? We try to escape reality. You know, there's a lot going on in the world that, you know, it's nice to have a hobby to just, you know, disappear into, you know what I mean? All right, so back to fantasy world of chess. All right, here we go. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah, the knight on d6. You know, look at the other two games. Why trade this guy? You know what I mean? At this point, if you want to win the bishop, that's one thing. But you don't want to trade, because look at this bishop, right? Look at this bishop. It's not doing anything. Locked in, right? The knight on d6, shining star. It's a knight in shining armor, right? All right, so anyway, is it on move? It's actually on move? We could just take... Oh, look at this. All right, so he saves the bishop. We take this guy. I forgot about him. I'll tell you, I'm distracted by lawnmowers over here and all the nonsense. Forgot about that guy. All right, forget it. You know, either way, however you want to slice it, black's busted. Look, minus 4.15. All right, that's the bottom line. And then let's go back. This is all due to this. Look, B pawn. Be careful in many openings, folks. Grabbing that B pawn with the queen, you could get into a lot of trouble. Look at that. Look at this move. See? Right from this point. Now, whether he takes here or whatever he tries to do, he's in dire straits. Black's in dire straits. He's already busted. Minus 2.75. You see? See how it works? All right. So anyway, I mean, look, even if he takes here, let's see. If he takes here, all right, you take that guy. Bishop's hanging, and you got the fork coming. You get it? Like, even if he tries to protect c7, right? Because he's trying to save this one. And then you win the rook. Hey, look, you just eliminate him. Doesn't matter. Now you get it, see? I mean, come on. This is terrible. Terrible. The whole thing falls apart. Why? Because black grabs the B pawn. Silly. Silly. See that? So you give your opponents, that's a trap right there. Just look, you're making good moves. You're developing the piece. It's not like you're making some silly move just to hope that your opponent falls into the trap. No, you're making sensible moves. Your knight wants to go to c3. There you go. All right? And let's see if he's a fool. If your opponent's a fool and he stumbles into it, all right. You're on easy street, right? Okay, so anyway, at this point, though, that was just in the notes. Knight to c3 is better, right? But like I said, Morphy plays this knight, the king knight to b5, blocking the queen from b2. All right, so now Paulson develops his king knight. Okay, now watch this. Here's a little sideline. Here they go, the old masters, right? Bishop takes bishop. Okay, now they give this in-between check with the knight. All right, the king goes over here. They give that as best. Then you take your piece back, right, because you don't want to be down a piece. And lo and behold, here he comes. He comes in with check. All right, they give blocking with the queen. The queen's trade. The bishop takes back. All right, and then they give this the queen knight, you know, because you got to defend your that light square bishop on c8, right? All right, you develop a piece, and now your queen rook defends the bishop on c8. And it says here, black seems to have quite a good game. I mean, let's look at it, right? He's up a pawn, okay? He's up a pawn, and white's e-pawn's isolated. Could become a target, you know? You control the square in front of it, and you could maybe win it. And, I mean, heck, you know, now with the queens off, even if white, look, okay, look at this. White starts to put pressure on f7. Don't panic. Okay? They say to play this. I mean, this is no fear because you got the knight. That would be a problem if this knight wasn't there. Because now, I mean, you see what happens? The knight's The knight on f6 is blocking the attack of the rook down the open f-file. Yes, you know, white has a missing f-pawn, but that f5, I mean, the f-file could be utilized by the rook, okay? So the f-file could be utilized by the rook. All right, he's down a pawn, but, you know, at this point, he can't really put it to can't cause black any damage. Luckily, this pawn can't come up, you see, and threaten this knight away, and then you'd come right in, you know. But we got the knight. We got the other knight, the brother over there on c6. His brother's going to protect the f6 knight. All right. So no threat there, no harassment, right? So, I mean, this is looking good. Look, they give you this. All right, so it's a whole different game, folks. But black, you know, really, black's okay. He's got a little trouble getting that queen bishop, getting his queen side developed, right? That's the little drawback for the pawn, I guess, okay? And if you look at the evaluation over here, look at the evaluation, right? Look at this, 0.20, right? 0.20, not much of a, either way, it's a draw pretty much. It's even, you know. White's got a little more plays, a little ahead in development for the pawn, right? It's kind of like a gambit, I guess. You look at it that way. But, you know, the old masters there, they say black seems to have quite a good game, you know. If you're playing black, fine. The queens are off, so the game slows down a bit. So that's why it's, you know, to have that extra pawn for black's not bad. You could slowly unravel. There's no, like, real threat of a mating attack. It's not like white's development's going to mean as much without the queens on the board. You know, that attack's not going to gain steam. You know what I mean? So that's what they give. I mean, they even give. I'm playing. Look at the engine here. No different. Look at this. I was playing Shredder. He goes for the B pawn. All right, you bring out this guy. Okay, and now the bishop on C8 still hanging, right? So I don't know. Shredder played the queen here, and this one's playing it here. I don't get that. What's the deal here? Look at that. You don't even take the piece, right? You don't even take the piece because, again, this knight's sitting nice. He's developed. Why take a piece that hasn't moved the whole game? It's going to be a while for that queen bishop to get in the game, right? So he's just developing. Look at this. What does he do? All right, he develops the knight here, protecting the knight on d6 with the queen. You know, it's a whole other game. You know, the only difference in this is kind of, okay, once again, black's got he's got an extra pawn. This time he won the B pawn, right? So he's got an extra pawn, and you can see white's pawns are ugly because he's got two isolated E pawns, an isolated C pawn, and an isolated A pawn. So there's pawn islands all over the place. You got one. Look, let's make a move, right? Take this guy out. So the bishop's developed on us. So the bishop is protected, I should say. Knight comes out. The rook now protects from this, losing the piece outright. Okay. So now look at this. You got one pawn island, two pawn islands, right? This is the third pawn island, fourth pawn island. You know, these pawns can't protect one another. Then look at black. They're all linked up together. Look at this. Look at these pawns. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so there you go. And then in this variation, the queens are still on the board. All right, so maybe white could build an attack. You know, maybe this developing. I don't know. I don't like C3. I mean, what the heck? I mean, I guess that's to keep the knight back from B4. I don't know. Anyway, you get your bishop out at castle, put pressure on F7, and you bring the queen maybe to F3, you know, down the F file, you put pressure. Who knows, right? Totally different game. Totally different game. All right. I just wanted to, this is part of the notes. Part of the notes with a little extra there, a little bonus. Little bonus if the queen takes on B2. The old masters, like I said, they give this, right? Block with the queen. I mean, you could do some stuff like this. You could come up maybe, right? They give, look at the engine saying there, and then you take the B2 pawn. All right, same idea. Then the knight comes out, and maybe it even transposes just like before. Look at this. I mean, is it any different, really? All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to the game. Let's get to the man of the hour, right? The star of the show. Come on, let's do it. All right. Morphy knight to b5, and like I said, Paulson doesn't go in with this. Okay, like the notes. He brings the king knight to f6. All right. Now look at this. Look at this. So Morphy now Morphy takes the bishop. All right, you don't want to take the bishop. I'll trade these bishops off. All right, here we go. Queen takes. Now the knight comes flying in to d6 again. Lo and behold, how's it going to affect Paulson this time? All right, king up, right? He takes the bishop off. How about that one, huh? Takes with check. Rook takes. Okay, now you got the queen and the rook bearing down on c2, right? Okay, don't panic. And your e4 pawns hanging from the knight, right? 2 pawns are hanging. This guy and this guy. All right, fear not, my friends. The king bishop to the rescue. Develops to d3, protecting both, right? Simple enough. Okay, the knight comes out, right? Develop those pieces. Morphy castles. And look at this now. I found this funny. Paulson launches the h-pawn. I guess because the king moved already, he's not over in the king side. He has the king rook over on c8. He feels, let me pawn storm. Launch these pawns. There's not going to be a castle. You know, his king's going to take shelter behind these central pawns, right? Could be dangerous. If Morphy could rip it open, right? But anyway, let's see what happens. Okay, knight to d2. There's no real future coming here, if you notice. Look, if you come here, all right, you back up your e4 pawn, but look at the squares. Where can he go, folks? If he comes here, right, he can't come to d5. He can't come over here, can he? He can. He's backed up by the bishop, actually. But I don't know. Morphy chose this, right? Maybe he'll swing him over to the king side. Maybe he'll get to d6 via c4, right? Who knows? Something like this, maybe. Okay, so here we go. The knight comes to d2. And look at Paulson pushing ahead. Oh, where was this an attack? Attack of the h-pawn, huh? All right, Morphy shuts him down, stops his momentum. All right, and look at this. Paulson pushing the other one. All right, folks. h3 has been played. You got to pry it open with g4, maybe. Maybe that's coming. All right, here comes Morphy on the queen side now with a3, huh? All right, look, Paulson swinging the rook to back up that pawn push. All right, here we go. Morphy, though, hitting the queen. All right, everything's got to stop. The queen is threatened by this little troublemaker, b4. All right, where's he go? He goes to b6. All right, Paulson brings the queen to b6. Here comes that knight. Knight to c4. Harassing the queen backs off. All right, c7. Queen hides on c7. Okay, here we go. Now what? Now what do we do? What did Morphy do now? Okay, he brings his pawn. All right, he backs up e4. Right? Not sure about that one. I guess to stop this guy. Right? He's stopping that prying open to the king side. Right? That's the idea. You take control with your pawns, the g4 square. So now what does this even do? It does nothing. Senseless move. You take, right? You take one way. Hey, open it up for our rook, huh? Why not? We get an open f file, right? Pretty dangerous. Now we'll be beaming down the f file onto that f7. We'll maybe boot the knight away, right? We'll be attacking. We'll be the ones with the attack, you know? So, okay, there you go. So there you have it. So when you play f3, there you go. You halt the black g-pawn, right? But get a load of this now. Here comes the knight. The knight swings to e5, but here's the note, folks. All right, here's the note. Look, your pawn comes up, right? All right, to stop that, g4 pawn push. But look, the old masters give knight to h5. Now you're taking advantage of the dark squares for the knight, right? Where's the dark square bishop for white, huh? He traded it off, and now look at his dark squares, very weak, right? You can look at the queen already. The queen's already supporting those dark squares. And the pawns. And the knight's just screaming to leap in there, right? I don't know. Like, let's just make a move. I don't know. Bring the queen up. Look at this knight coming in here. What a pain, right? Look at this one right here. He could sit on either one if he wants, right? You can't do this and boot him. You got this H pawn, right? You can't boot him away. Come on, right? It's an outpost, folks. Outposts. Outposts all over on the dark squares. We've seen what happens. Remember the other game? I forget the number. Remember Morphy planting a knight on F4, right, on the dark square? Remember how deadly that was? All right. So anyway, this is what should have been played, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. All right. Paulson chooses the other knight. He plays knight to E5. Okay, Morphy chops him off. Chops him off. Queen takes back, right? Okay, queen up to D2, developing the queen, linking up those rooks on the back rank. Okay. So now we got, look at this, rook lift, okay? He's going to, he's going to double? They gave it a question mark. All right, gave it a question mark. What are you going to double up on the G file and then push? And what are you going to do, sack your knight maybe? I don't know. I don't know. Because the 2 pawns control this square, right? Whether the rooks are linked up, doubled up on the G file, you push G4 next, after you double your rooks. Pawn takes pawn. What are you going to knight sack on G4 maybe? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. They gave it a question mark, right? So here we go. Where's the queen rook? The queen rook coming right here for Morphy to D1, right? Now, if you notice, once this the bishop moves, they could be bearing down on D7, I don't know, Paulson felt a little need to defend D7, okay? So he moves his queen rook to D8. And here we got the queen. Now the queen maneuvers, right? Now that the queen rook moved off of A8, now this guy's hanging, right? You're maneuvering, you're trying to get something going, right? All right, here goes Paulson blocking him out. Okay, now not only are we're on F2 with the queen, so now we can support this one, right? We push, Paulson takes, holy smokes, he's giving me the open G file. I'm going to grab that, no doubt about it. All right, here comes the queen takes. So now to try to, slow down any form of attack, Morphy's offering the queen exchange, right? So Here's Paulson though. Paulson doesn't wanna trade. He's bearing down on G2 now with the queen and rook. Look at this. All right, no sweat. Yeah, rook up to F2, protecting that G2 square. All right, and here now Paulson figures, all right, okay, fine. Here we go. We'll trade the queens. Okay. Now here we go. Look at this note. Here's a note for you. It says queen rook to G8 would not have been good because of queen takes queen, rook takes queen, okay? And then it says queen rook right here to F1. There you go, right? And you see we're bearing down on the knight. We're bearing down on F6, and if the knight moves, right? If the knight moves, we're coming in over here now. We're taking this guy, right? Okay. So we would have some threats, and it gives here if instead of moving the knight, okay, because we take with check, right? We take with check, king moves, and then if worse comes to worse, what do? We could just even come back, right? We pull this guy back, because if you try to protect G2 with this one, well, now you can take here. Oh, okay, we got to take back. They could just trade. You could just trade, or you could even come up here, right? You take this rook, however you want to do it, right? However you want to do it, and then then you're closer to the end game. I don't know. It doesn't work. There's no winning line, so white could win a pawn, king down. Now you got to pull this guy back, okay? So white won a pawn now. All right. So there you stand. That's a threat. And here's the other problem. If black doesn't try to move the knight, but rather brings his rook, for instance, he brings a rook back like this to protect the knight, you boot him out, right? What's he going to do now? The knight's got to run. He's got to move. What are you going to just lose the knight? Come on. So the knight moves, I don't know, where's it move? Look at this. I mean, I don't know, look at the engine. The engine comes up with this. I mean, forget about it. What do we got going on right now? I mean, heck, we could just take with check, right? And G2 still protected. I mean, come on. Now we're up a piece. It's all over. All over. Okay. So you see how that works? You try to protect the knight. You get the pawn push, right? If the knight even moves, you're losing the exchange, right? And you could even take first. Add insult to injury. All right, king moves, right? Now you take the exchange. You see, forget it. It's over. All over. All right, so that's a pretty line in itself. You know, a little maneuvering there. So after that, after the rook, let's see, what do we do? Yeah, rook up. Once the rook, Morphy did the rook up. Okay, there was no sense of bringing this rook into the attack on the G file. It loses, totally loses after we take, and then we bring the rook there. Look at the damage, huh? We saw the damage. No hope for black. Okay, so what does Paulson do after the rook comes up to F2? All right, Paulson goes in. He says, all right, fine. They trade the queens. Okay, they trade the queens. Okay, and then what do we got going on now, huh? Other than these beeps and blips. Okay, that's the end game blip. You know, you hit a little beeps and blips. That's a warning. We're going into the end game. Queens have been traded, folks. Here it goes. I'll give it to you again, just to have a few laughs. I'll bring my other window down because it's getting hot in this car. All right, here we go. That's right, folks. I'm doing this on my tablet from the car. Can you believe it? Hey, what one has to do, right, to make ends meet. All right, anyway, here we go. So now, all right, queens have been traded, right? Morphy takes back with the rook. Here we go. Now he doubles up. He doubles up on the G file, going down to even at G2. All right, here, look at this. The other rook comes up into the game now. All right, rook to D2, protecting G2. All right, here we go. What's next? What's next? Okay, okay. Morphy, right? Attacking H4. All right, Paulson defends. Right, he defends with his rook. Okay, here we go. Harass that knight. Get out of there, you. All right, so now the knight repositions on D5, right? Look at this. Doubling up on the D file. All right, the bishop's, the king bishop on D3 is in the way right now. All right, let's see what happens. Look at this. Paulson attacking that E5 pawn. Okay? So now Morphy takes with check, and the knight goes back capturing. Okay? So now the knight sits nice on F6. He protects D7. Okay? Look at this, though. Look at this move now. Very quiet, subtle move. Rook to C4. What's he doing there? Well, I'll tell you, folks. All right? Look at the position. He wants to bring the rook. He's on the open file now, right? The semi-open file. I mean, white has a C pawn, but look, he's coming down. He's going to try to penetrate into the enemy position. Folks, we've said it before in the other games. Rook to the 7th. That's where you want to bring your rook on an open file. You bring it to the 7th rank. You're attacking those pawns from the side. And then if they move, you get behind those pawns and harass them from behind, right? This is the goal. This is how you penetrate. This is a plan, okay? So now Paulson sees it. He brings the king back, trying to protect C7. He doesn't want the rook to penetrate, right? Okay. So now Morphy goes ahead. He moves his A pawn up. Right now, look at the knight posting up back in the center. Okay. Bishop to E4, threatening to bishop takes knight, pawn takes, rook takes back, right? Look, you win a pawn, right? You win a pawn. That's the threat, okay? Everyone counts, folks. We're in the end game, okay? We're getting closer. Every pawn, crucial. You lose a pawn, you could easily lose the game. All right. So Paulson gets his knight out of there. He brings it back to C7, okay? Here we go. All right. Morphy pulls the bishop back. Now the bishop is protecting G2, right? Even though he's got the rook on it still and all. Just a key note. Look at it, the beautiful diagonal, right? The long light square diagonal for that bishop on F3. Beautiful. The A8, H1 diagonal, okay? Now here we go. Look, and not to mention, why did Morphy pull that back, huh? Well, you got threats of this. You got, look, I'll just do something stupid like this. You got threats of forking your, you got a pawn fork here, attacking the rook and bishop, but it's pinned. The pawn is pinned, though. But, Morphy moves, he doesn't want to take any chances, I guess. He's repositioning. He's going to maybe come along this avenue over here, attacking this way. All right, so he pulls the bishop back for now. And lo and behold, Paulson hits him anyway with the d pawn. Okay, now here's a question mark for this pawn push. Look at this. He does not improve his position by this advance. Yet even after it, White finds it impossible to secure an advantage until he forces a pass pawn on the king-rook file. Okay, over here he's gonna create. Morphy's got 2 pawns to 1, right? He's gonna create a pass pawn over there. All right, so now here's Morphy repositioning the rook, right, to c6, putting a little pressure on this guy. All right, here we go. Look, getting the pin, getting out of that pin there. This pawn, because here's the threat also. Look, when the rook comes up, rook's attacked, right? Okay, rook repositions to c6, putting a little pressure there. We got the knight on it, so okay. Paulson's got the knight. But there's also this threat. Oops. Here we go. Let's make a silly move. I don't know where to go. Let's just say let's do this silly move. Irrelevant, right? Look, you got this coming. Your pawn is pinned. He can't take, folks. It's checked down the d file, right? Okay, so you win a pawn, folks. You win a pawn now. You see that? What's black going to do? Okay? Okay, so black would lose a pawn. That's the threat. Here comes the rook up, right? With c4 being the threat. Okay, Paulson sees it. He defends with rook to d7, getting that king out of the pin, the d pawn out of the pin, right? Okay. Look, like I said, here he goes. Morphy repositioning the bishop on g4. Now they're attacking. Now they're ganging up on the e6 pawn, right? All right, rook up to protect. Okay. So here we go. Look at this. Morphy piling on. Paulson defends with the king. All right. All right, now here comes Morphy. Remember the other note? He's going to create a pass pawn over here. King to h2. Look at this. The king comes over, right? Here comes the pawn. Pawn takes pawn check. King takes. All right, he's got a pass pawn on the h file, right? Okay, here we go. Now that the rook comes over here to e7. Now e6 is protected. There's no pin at the d pawn. Now we could reposition his knight because the king, rook, and rook protect e6. We got it covered, right? Three pieces attacking, 3 pieces defending. All right, so now the knight's free to get back in the game. Okay, so now here we go. Look at this rook pawn up the board. Here comes the knight, reposition, right? Knight's not going to do any good over there on c7. So he's got to get him up. Here comes the pawn. All right, here comes the knight. Holy smokes. They're around, folks. They're moving around, right? They're doing the dance. All right, well, anyway, the knight now positioned on f6. Did you see it, folks? Do you see what's wrong with that move? I mean, we just said it. We just said it. 3 pieces defending e6, 3 pieces attacking, right? All right, this guy's blocked out now. The knight's blocking the defense of the rook over here to e6, right? Okay, Morphy, right? Chops it right off. Takes it. In the blink of an eye, it's gone. Whammo. Okay, so now, all right, let me make sure I got this right. Because look at this tactic. Look, what if he throws the knight in with check? Holy smokes. Yeah, but okay, let's make sure we do this right. Let's make sure we do this right. Okay, for instance, if you got to take with this guy, okay? If you take with this guy, all's good. All's good. Because let's say you take with this pawn, right? Big mistake. Look, we just take over here. We take that guy, and we're up a bishop, right? We're up a bishop. Forget about it. Game over. Okay? Now, make sure we got the engine still going, so we could check it, folks. Let's just make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? Okay? So if I take, let's see what even the engine says. Because if you take with this guy, look at what happens. You just take with the pawn. Now what do? Now you just throw it away, folks. You're down the exchange, right? How did that happen? All right? Well, you got to analyze, folks. These could be tricky. But when you take with this guy, right? Okay, they say the best move is the rook over here to take, right? All right, we'll take with check. Why not, right? Okay, he takes back. Let's take that guy. Okay, he takes back. Folks, now, we got that extra H pawn, right? It's all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. What's he going to do? We got 3 pawns each on the queen side, right? What's he going to do? He can't do anything. Look, we'll push. Let's see. You want to push that guy up? The most accurate move they're saying is B5, right? Does it even matter, folks? Look, I'll do it. We'll do it any way you want. Let's throw that pawn going in. All right, he plays this. Okay? How do we want to do this? Look, you throw it in. Let's see. He goes up there, right? You throw it up. He takes there, right? You want to throw up, right? If you're black, you want to throw up. You're talking about throwing up. Look at it. He's busted. He's busted. You know, you play a game, folks. Thank God this ain't my game. If I was black, these are the ones you want to just really quit chess after a while, right? I don't know why they're saying A5. Let's just take. All right? You don't have to complicate things. We got 2 extra pawns. Do we have to explain anything else? We just launched this guy like a bomb. Look, we just launched him up. We launched the C pawn up like a bomb. Come on. We can even play it silly like this. We got 2, folks. We got 2 pawns. Come on. Look at this now. Look at it. Come on. Do we have to go further? Let's check. Just don't get him in stalemate, whatever you do. Just don't go for the stalemate here. All right, here he goes. He comes up. Ain't that cute? All right, now we could burn a move. Big deal. He goes over there, right? King up. He's forced 1 square, right? There we go. Look. Here he comes out. There you go. It's all over, right? There you go. Not the greatest technique, but, I mean, clearly, folks, we were winning it easy. You could be a little sloppy. I know. I'm rushing through this. You know what I mean? We're just proving the point here. All right? Good enough, right? We got the win, right? We get the win like that. The point is, look, maybe it's more accurate, right? You just leave that H pawn. Just leave it there, right? He goes over. He's got to go. He can't come. What's he going to do? He can't come up to defend his pawns. He's got to stay within reach of that. Look, here he goes. He's trying to defend his pawns, right? Hello? Got to babysit that guy. Come on. You got to get over there. Look. There you go. He's got to leave the defense. See? We don't have to waste moves moving our H pawn unless necessary. That would be the correct technique. All right, so all right, he takes him, and now he's way off. Now he's way over there. It's all over, no matter what. Okay? We got this. Well, minus 12.75, minus 13 pawns. Look at that. Look at the engine, huh? Okay, so here we go. Let's go back. All right, so that's how that's if this check, black tries to get fancy. Okay? No problemo. You just trade them all off. Right on E6. Doesn't matter at this point. You trade them off. You got the H pawn. You got the outside. You got an extra pawn, right? But you got the outside pawn over there. Black can't leave it alone. It's a passed pawn way over there. All right. I'm just illustrating the obvious. We're learning, folks. I know there's a lot of kids learning out there, a lot of young adults, old adults too. We're all learning this game. I mean, myself, I'm learning a lot when I review this stuff. I'll tell you, I can't wait to go back to playing these tournaments. I think I got a lot of. I'm gonna gain a lot more points. Okay. So anyway, here we go. So where were we? All right. So now the knight blocks out E6. Okay. So Morphy takes. All right. And at that point, let me make sure I got it right. Move 42 for black. Right. Okay. They trade the rooks. Okay. Here comes the bishop taken with check. All right, now, look at this. Paulson puts the king over here. To G7, question mark, right? This is what I'm talking about in other, I pointed out, subtleties of the end game. Unbelievable stuff. Look at this. Now, if he goes here, they're giving this is the move, okay? king to f8 is better. Though white has rook to e5, going after that pawn, going after the d5 pawn, right? But lo and behold, if you look, I mean, the engine, I still left the engine on from before, right? Look, you could see it. Now, they didn't talk about this. They just left it at that, okay? That black should have moved his king to f8. Let's go back. On this check, king to f8 was the better move. And it says, though white has rook to e5. Okay, and that's all they give. But now the engine, sure enough, takes over here, right, with check, okay? I mean, you know, this engine's saying to go up. Shredder had said to go over here, all right? And basically, you know, this is, I don't know, it's draw, if you ask me. Because the knight goes here, you take here, right? You take, all right? Now, again, we said it before, folks. We said it before. Look at this. Rook attacking the b4 pawn, okay? But, folks, we said it before. Rook and pawn endgames. They're so hard, so complicated. Just because white's up a pawn means nothing. One pawn means nothing. Sometimes two pawns mean nothing, okay? This is a draw. It's a draw. They fight it out. I mean, look at the engine going after the king. I mean, what's this? Okay. He grabs, all right, look. He grabs this one. You grab that one. All right? It's a draw, folks. It's a draw. Okay? You could fight that one out. Be my guest. Right? We got better things to do. Let's go back to the game. Because you're going to have some laughs now. This is great. Okay, now again, look, you know, on the check. They recommend this, and here you go. Paulson plays king to g7. Whoop-de-doo, big deal, right? Winning, losing, how could that be a loss? All right, well, we're gonna show it now. Watch this now. This is crazy. Okay? So now, here we go. We got, we got the bishop back trying to protect the h-pawn, but lo and behold, you know, he's got two on it, folks. Paulson takes. All right, they trade bishop and knight. Once again, rook and pawn endgames, right? But look at this now. Watch this. Okay? King on g7. See the difference, folks? Look at the damage now. Look at this. All right, king comes up, attack the rook. All right, but did you see it? The rook forked the king and the pawn. The a7 pawn goes in the box. White's up a pawn now. Okay, so look at this. So now, here comes Paulson. King to the center, right? King's an attacking piece. That king centralized, right? Trying to help out his pawn, maybe come over, attack those white pawns with his rook. All right, let's see, what do we do? Oh, yeah, Morphy attacks the b6 pawn now, right? Okay, attacking b6. Here comes Paulson with a check, king over. Here comes Paulson with a check, king over, right? I think this was to avoid, I don't know, maybe Morphy was fearing this. I looked with the engine. It really doesn't seem to make a difference. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But all right. He's playing it safe. He comes over here, right? Basically, he's moving over to his queen side pawns, right? The king's moving over either way, whether it's e3 or e2. Okay, now, look at this. Paulson pushing the pawn, right? He pushes the pawn. It says right here in the note, giving up what he cannot save, except at the immediate expense of the game. Okay, what do they mean? All right. Obviously, you see this, right, folks? You see this? Now, that's what these checks were about. I'll show you. Maybe Paulson didn't realize it at the time. Okay, king up. All right, Morphy attacks b6, right? Now, if Paulson tries to defend like this, right? Defend that b6 pawn, it's pinned, folks. See that little trick? Here's a good one to know. Okay, there's a rook and pawn tactic, okay? The pawn is pinned. He can't take over here. You win the rook. You win the rook, all right? So the pawn is busted, right? The pawn's lost, okay? So what I think Paulson was his logic was he checked the king. The king moved over. He checked the king again. The king moved over. Now, if he was to do this, and you try to win the... Look, if he takes, the king's protecting the rook. The king is protecting the rook, but lo and behold, it still loses. It still loses. Because after the pawn, you trade the rooks off, and then the pawn takes on a5, and the king is outside the square of the pawn. The square of the pawn, what are we talking about? The square of the pawn. All right, let me show you. You see that this pawn only has, the white pawn has 3 moves to queen, okay? And instead of trying to calculate, he goes, I go, he goes, I go, he goes, I go, do I catch him? You get confused, right? You could easily mess up like this. There's a simple tool that you can use. It's called the square of the pawn. Now, let me just show you. I'm going to draw a square like this so you can visualize it, right? Let me just use these black pawns as an example, okay? This is our position. It's got, this white pawn has 1, 2, 3 moves to go, right? Well, let's make a box, right? A square. Square of the pawn. Look at this, a square, right? Okay, so if the black king, it's black's move, right? It's going to be black's move in this position. If he can enter that square, then he can stop that pawn, okay? So if the king, it's black's move, right? Now, let me do this. If the king was here, and it's his turn, well, he can enter right here, and he can stop the pawn. No calculation necessary. He entered the square, he could stop the pawn. For instance, if the king was over here, and it's black's turn, he could step right there, and he can stop the pawn. He can make it. No calculation necessary. You understand? Now, that's how it works. All right? So, this is maybe a little easy to see because it's only 3 moves. Sometimes, you know, if the pawn, let's say, oops, let's do it this way, right? Let's say if the pawn is here, right? The pawn may be here. Your king could be here. You don't know. You got to understand. In the end games, you're trading pieces. You're like, oh, if I trade down, can I stop the pawn? So you got to calculate all different exchanges and this and that. So now you're like, it's black's turn. Well, you would do this. You would say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at that. Visualize a square. See it? I mean, obviously, you're not going to take out the paintbrush and start painting the board, right? But the point is, it's black's move, and you can see he can't reach the square in time. He can't reach the square. He goes there. He doesn't reach it. He's not going to stop that pawn. He's not in the square of the pawn. Okay, that's the lingo. The king can't get in the square of the pawn. He can't stop that pawn. Okay? All right, so that's a little tool you can use, you know. Now I got to set up, let me just cancel it. We go back to our position. And you see what we just looked at? Let's go back a little. Okay? The point being that after these checks, it makes no difference. The check, king over, check, king over. Now the black king protects the rook, yes. But it still doesn't work because the king, after the exchange of rooks on f6, it drags the king out of the square of the pawn. Look at this, folks. The square of the pawn. He would have to get to, it's black's move, the closest he could come, right? He could only go here or here, let's say, right? He can't stop him. Look, you can't stop him. He's off by a move. See that? Queen. Game over. All right, so that's why it says here, let's go back. Paulson sees it, you know. He sees this. After the last check and the king goes to e2, that's where on move 50, right? Yep. Move 50, Paulson just throws the pawn up, okay? So he gives him the pawn. Now the pawns are doubled, right? And this is what Paulson's playing for. This is unbelievable now. Look at this. So what, after pawn takes pawn, rook here, right? Attacking. He's attacking b4, the b4 pawn. So Morphy, he plays b3. He plays c3 to protect it, right? All right, makes sense. Now look at this exclamation point for Paulson. Look at this. He plays d4 exclamation point, right? Why? Because if he trades, if Morphy trades, that's it. It's a draw, folks. This is a draw. I mean, let's look at the engine. Protect B4. The only way to protect it, right? Okay, so now what? So now King D6, okay? B6. Now watch the trap. Watch the trap. If you go here, folks, that's a big no-no. You know why? B5 check. Holy smokes, what's going on? You take the pawn, you lose the rook. You see that? A discovered attack where the pawn unleashes the A4 rook, and it's a check move. Now, if he tries to stay and protect his rook, big deal. You take it, now you march in, you get your queen. So subtly, I'm telling you, folks, there's pitfalls throughout the game. Just because there's a few pieces left, always watch those hidden tactical resources. I tell you, this game of chess, it'll knock you for a loop. All right, look at this. So now the pawn goes up. All right, big deal. Okay? So on the engine, look, this is what ends up happening. The king could come down, right? The king's going to get to the B file. Okay? And, I mean, there's no queen in these pawns. No way. I mean, look, you come up, you attack this guy. All right, the rook, where's the rook want to go? Here. All right, it pulls it back. Right, it pulls it, but keep that king out of the game. Keep that king from getting over to help those pawns. All right, a check comes in. No problem. No problem. Here we go. King up, right? Now, wait a minute. What if, okay, he's attacking B6, right? All right, you saved the pawn. All right. You got to stop the pawn from queening, right? Don't want it to get to B8. Only move for black. All right, so here we go. Look at this. What's this? Queen? With the engine saying queen? Big deal. What is this? You come over here. No problemo. This is nothing. There's nothing there. The king, the black king stops that B pawn. And the white king's no help. He can't get over there to help the pawn. Nothing. It's a draw. It's a draw, folks. It's a draw, right? Okay. I mean, if you do, let's see, after this, he protects, right? Right. Let's say, okay, king over here, right? The king over here. Say you go after this guy, right? You just pull the rook over there, right? The king's coming over, right? All right. So now, here we go. The king's getting over to that B file with no problem. Here comes the king, right? To protect B4, so now his rook could get in the game. Look at this, though, folks. Did you see it? Look at this. Check. All right, king goes up. All right, check him again. King goes, I don't know, here. Check. Where's he going to go now, folks? All right, come back down. Check. He's got no shelter, folks. No shelter from the storm. The rook on the H-file checks him to the end of time. You see this? Draw. See that 0.00 evaluation? You see the engine over here? Look at the engine over here. 0.00. Draw. Okay? These are, again, rook and pawn endgames, folks. I tell you, there's so many tactical resources. It's mind-boggling. All right? These pawns can do nothing. So, the whole idea, all right, this is, I mean, simply put, it's a draw. And even if the rook, I don't know, if they see the logic was the king wants to relieve the rook on A4 from protecting that one, right? Now, if you decide, all right, you don't even, after this, you don't even protect B4, right? Just, you say, to hell with it. Let's I don't know, let's move the rook, maybe, you know, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. He's going to take there. Then look, just for argument's sake, I don't know, you move somewhere, right? He takes here. Now the rook is behind the pawn. He's harassing the pawn from behind. That's what you want to do, okay? And there's no way, there's nothing. It's a draw. This is a draw, okay? Look, the king's going to come over, right? What could the white king do? The king's going to come over, and there'll be two on that pawn before you could blink, right? Look, right there. Two on the pawn. What's it going to move up? Come on, it's over. All right? The only thing that white could do at this point, I mean, look, even if he checks the king, what does that do? He takes it with this guy. Come on. It's over. It's a draw. I'm telling you, these rook and pawn end games, you're up a pawn or two even. It doesn't mean anything. It could be a draw, all right? All right, so here okay. So here we go, back to the game, right? Paulson with D4, exclamation point, right? Folks, if Morphy takes, that's it, it's a draw. But Morphy, he knows better. He pushes on to C4, and he gets an exclamation point for that move. I mean, this is the balance, folks, between a win and a loss. A win and a draw, I should say. You get it? Morphy just won the game with this move. All right, so look at this. Okay, watch what happens now. Rook over, right? Pawn up. Okay? These pawns are moving up the board now. All right, he gets the check in. He's going to, maybe he could harass him like in that other variation, right? Harass that king to death, right? To the ends of time. All right, check. Okay, now look, here you go. You got to be careful. Look at this one. Did you see this? This would be a blunder. Look at this. Checkmate. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? It's easy to make that mistake. You try to bring your king up to support your own pawns as they march up. Whammo, right? Checkmate out of nowhere. Okay, Morphy, he's hip, right? He sees it from a mile away. All right, he goes down. Okay, he goes to C2. No problem there. The rook harassing again. He's going to try to do it all night long, but unfortunately, look at this. Check again. Morphy ducking behind the shelter of his own B pawn. Look at this. All right, we're coming down to the wire, so here we go. Paulson, king to D5, okay? And look at Morphy with the check. All right. Now it's the black king. Paulson moving to C4. Look at Morphy. He's getting a little crowded there on the A file. Nowhere to really go. And sure enough, look at this. Morphy with the pawn pushed to C6. And sure enough, what does Paulson do? Look at this rook. Rook to H1. He's going to try to mate Morphy on that A file there. If you could see the black king, right? There's no escape squares for Morphy. A rook check on A1 is mate. So what do you do, folks? What does the champ do? What did Morphy do? What would you do here? What are you going to do? I'll show you what Morphy does. He takes the pawn with check. He sacks the rook. Look at this. Buying him time to push C7. Look at this. One more square and it's touchdown, baby. Now look at this. If Paulson goes for the mate, right? Setting up his mate. I mean, heck, you go in with check. You promote with check, and it's all over for black, right? Okay, so now what happens? All right, so what? Look at Morphy. Let's go back. Let's see. Yes, he sacks the rook. The Paulson takes, and now he pushes C7. One more square, and that pawn queens, right? So now what? You got the rook, right? What's he gonna do? Check does no good. Well, he comes out, right? And that pawn's gonna queen, right? If he tries to attack it like this, you know, we just push B6 to protect, and those pawns, one of them's gonna make it. You know, the B pawn will make it now. There's no way the king could stop it. Look, B7. All right, the rook could take that one if it wants. We get this one, right? Take your pick, right? We get one or the other. All right, here we go. So that's not good. Can't do it that way. Okay, so look, let's go back. The check does nothing. The king comes out. He could check again, but what's the use, folks? What does it even matter, right? What does it even matter? Why don't we attack that rook? We don't care. Look, let him take there. We get our queen, right? It's over. It's all over. All right, he wants to take that one. This could be a little tricky, right? Could be tricky against the rook. There's a method to the madness. There's a way to do it. I forget the technique, but I guess it depends too where the kings are and how it's set up. Forgive me for not remembering that end game. But look, either way, I mean, let's see how it goes here. Let's do it a different way. Look, the king goes to, okay, the king goes here. You protect B4, right? Again, if he goes after the C pawn, B6 saves the C pawn for now. Then we push B7 next. The king's helpless. The king's useless. The king can do nothing. Look. There you go. Big deal. And we got the B4 pawn. We'll hold on to that one for extra, you know. We could even just sack take the rook, right? We end up taking the rook. Trading the queen for the rook as long as our king's in position to push that pawn and promote the B4 pawn. We're good. We're good to go, right? Now if he checks again over here to be a real nuisance, now you can come up. What's he going to win now? Nothing. He's going to win nothing. Look, he goes for the B pawn. He's going to get it with check, huh? I don't think so. Look, you come up now. Where's his checks? He's got to go. Okay, he goes back to the back rank. Here comes B6. Right, what's he going to do? What's he going to, right here? Can the king do anything? It's nothing. B7's coming next no matter what. What's he going to do? Right? Goodbye. Goodbye, Irene. It's all over, all right? What, are you going to get this check in? Big deal. What are you going to do? Harass me? Come on. It's all over. It's all over, okay? King here. What's the engine saying? How about this one? Look, we go here, we check, right? Where's he go? D6. All right, big deal. We could eventually get it to a point where we trade. Look at this. How about this one? There, okay, he stays on the light squares. Okay. You know, it's a little tedious. It's tedious, but we could easily win this. I mean, the pawn's coming down, folks. The pawn's going to come down. How's he going to stop it? Let's see. How's he going to stop it? With a check? All right, we attack him. He goes over here. I know we're just throwing the first move the engine comes up with. What's this about? Look. He's looking at some technique here. All right, here we go. Look, we do this. We do this. King moves, right? All right, we take the rook. There we go. There we go. Goodbye. Now, look, folks, let's do it again. Square the pawn, right? It's white's move. Okay, so white moves. Now it's black's move. Let's do square the pawn just to refresh. Let's see. If you didn't get it before, you'll see it. You'll see it now. Let's use this one, right? Square the pawn. 2 moves to queen. Make a little square, right? Now it's the black king's move. The black king's move. He goes there. Is he in the square? He's not in that square. He can't stop the pawn, right? Here we go. Watch. Let's go back. Cancel. All right. He goes here just like before. He's not in this square. He's not in this little square here. Here we go. King up. Look. He can't catch it. Good night. Okay. All over. All over. All right. So let's go back. Let's go back. Where was this all now? Okay. We were just looking at the possibilities, right? All right. The rook check does nothing. Here's Paulson, right? Pulling the rook back. All right. To his first rank. Rook to H8. Okay. Big deal. Here comes the pawn up, right? If I got this right. Pawn to B6. All right, look, he's setting up the mate. He's trying to set up the mate. Rook to A8 is mate now, right? But Morphy's got to move. Hold on a second. B7, game over, right? The rook, the pawn covers the square. No mate. He gets his queen, right? Paulson resigns. After B7, Paulson saw he was done. His goose is cooked, right? As they say. All over. Can't stop those 2 pawns. No way. What's the rook going to do? One of them moves up next. There's no check. There's nothing. King can't do anything. Move the king up. Look, you promote. Right? Give me a queen. All right, he hacks it off. Right? And you get another one. Game over. I mean, and heck, if you go like this, folks, if you do something crazy, if he runs, right, if he doesn't want to trade his rook or something, right, big deal. Look, you get another one. How about that one, huh? Now, he knew it. Paulson knew it. It was a waste of time at this point. After this move, game over. Paulson resigns. Game 15 goes to Morphy.